All right, Barry, we could cry in our beer all night as secularists. We could invite Christopher Hitchens to join us, and he can cry into his whiskey. Secularism it's in bad shape. Would you share my, I'm very sad about that, but I just think we're really in a bad way right now.
Well, when you look back over 50 years, we're all in good shape. I mean, the truth of the matter, Bill Maher made, I thought, a terrible film called Religulous.
Really bad film.
Yeah, I mean, because I don't like to be hit on the head by documentary filmmakers. If I didn't get the point by the end, I don't need him to tell me. But it was a terrible movie, but I'm glad it's out there, and I'm glad a lot of people saw it. I'm glad people get it on DVD, because in 1950, he couldn't have found anybody to make that. In fact, if he wanted to publish a book about atheism, you couldn't get a private printer in most parts of this country to even print it, much less go to a major publisher and get your book on the bestseller list.
It's an interesting point, but let's say in 1962 or 65, could a presidential candidate or a senatorial candidate or a congressional candidate get so Christy on the campaign trail? I think we've gone in the reverse direction in the last 50 years. Or do you think?
I think there was an assumption in the 50s and until John Kennedy was running that presidents were just like people who went to church, just like you went to church. Right. Everybody went to church. What do you mean there was somebody who didn't go to church?
Civil religion.
Civil religion. God and government, almost the same thing. Abraham Lincoln started this idea. It was a bad idea then. It's an even worse idea now. Now, in the 60s, John Kennedy, running as the first Catholic presidential candidate with a real chance of success, says to a group of Baptist ministers a few months before the election, I believe in the separation of church and state as an absolute for America. I mean, he took a very strong stand. Some historians believe that that single speech, where he said he wasn't going to listen to the church on matters of public policy, and he wasn't going to listen, to the government on matters of religion, that was such a powerful speech that in fact it gained him the presidency.
In the let's get up off our asses segment of all of this,
yes.
Let's stop crying. How are we going to regenerate, rebuild, and renew secularism in the next decade? Reverend Lynn, you would know better than anyone.
I think one of the things that you do is you have to just get this on the radar screen, because there is an instinctive sense in this country that there's something wrong about too close a combination of religion and government. For example, when it turns out that Nancy Pelosi, progressive woman, Democrat, Speaker of the House, has representatives and attorneys for the United States Catholic Conference outside her office, in her outer office, writing legislation to be added to the health care bill a few hours later, further restricting a woman's moral right, as I see it, to reproductive choice in this country. Then people who I'd never heard use the phrase separation of church and state are calling me up going, Barry, isn't this a violation of the separation of church and state?
Well, Reverend Lynn, secularism isn't perfect. I like to refer to it as the least awful option out there. We've made mistakes as secularists, and maybe there was a moment in American history where secularists had so completely scrubbed the public sphere of religion that perhaps, just saying perhaps, maybe we went overboard. So where is there a place for religion in public life?
Yeah, I think it's hard to find a place where the secular ideal went overboard. Okay. I think that there occasionally are things that happen, particularly amongst government bureaucrats. They do something wrong. They make a mistake. They say to a kid, don't read that Bible on the school bus. Even though Stephen King you could read, but don't read the Bible. And those incidents do happen, but they're very, very rare. And usually they could be resolved by anyone committed to a basic constitutional understanding. But they become the horror stories that the other side uses to try to convince people that there's a massive assault on religion, that we're virtually powerless, that those of us who are religious, the church is going to be closed the next day if we don't somehow send them money and, write our senator.
Something that causes some trepidation for me when I look at the secularist movement as it is constituted in the United States is that there is, how do I put this, an affluence of white dudes. Do you think that secularism might have a diversity problem, that we pull really from the same cohort, which is middle-aged white men, usually with advanced degrees?
I think that what we've found is that as more minority groups and minority religious groups become the subject of the animosity of the so-called religious right and others, that they say, well, wait a minute, how can we protect ourselves? So that even Muslims who do not come out of a tradition of separation of church and state or mosque and state do come up to us and say, well, how do you help us at least not become second-class citizens in our new country. So I think you'd find the diversity there, and I just found that also in the African American church, which sometimes gets labeled as, oh, well, they're really bad on the social issues. A lot of these church members that are members of Americans United as well are on our board and our chapters around the country, have 60 chapters around the country. They'll say, no, we understand it. This involves civil rights in the same way that some of the initial civil rights issues did. If you treat anybody for any reason as a second-class citizen, you're in a bad state of affairs. You're creating a country that's not right. It's not working. So yeah, the African-American community, I think, is awakening to the strong sense that some of the folks who are fighting on these church-state issues are also the same people that 45 years ago were not marching with Dr. King, but were marching against him.
Our guest today has been the Reverend Barry Lynn, and you can hear him on his radio show virtually every day at www.cultureshocks.com. Reverend Lynn, thank you for being with us today.
Nice to be here.